Hi, Dorothy. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm very happy because about 2 weeks ago, I asked your mom about this interview because she usually, she's very happy about all your traveling to Taiwan. How many times were you there?
Um, Technically two times. So the first, I was just going through the airport on the way to China. But this last time I went was, I would say, the first time.
How long were you there?
About 7 months, I would
Wow.
say. So a good amount of time.
How did you decide to go to Taiwan?
In college, my major was international studies/affairs, and we had to all have a language, and my language was Chinese. And then when I was going to graduate from my master's program, I wanted to continue studying Chinese after. So I applied to a scholarship with the Taiwanese government, and I got the scholarship, and I was able to go. Well, I was supposed to go in 2020, but because of COVID, my trip was pushed back till last year.
Mm-hmm. So how did you decide with the Chinese? Why did you choose Mandarin?
That's a longer story. Initially, when I was in high school, my best friend introduced me to Korean music, K-pop. And when I went to college, my university didn't have Korean, but I had watched Taiwanese shows and Chinese shows, so I thought it'd still be a good language for me to learn. So instead, I decided to do Chinese and study that.
I left Taiwan when I was 5 years old. And then at home, we only kept the Taiwanese. So my Mandarin is like very, very basic. So I'm
Uh,
sure that your Chinese or Mandarin is better than mine.
no, it's probably not. My Chinese is it's okay. I feel like since I've been gone, I've started to forget a lot of the what I'd learned before. But I've been trying to do some self studying while I'm here.
So if I say 我会添一点点，我不会说。
我懂你说。
Well, I try to say I can understand a little bit, but I cannot really speak Mandarin. It's like my basics.
I think that listening is also easier for me than speaking it for Chinese. But I think that's how it is for a lot of languages, where it's easier to listen than it is to speak sometimes.
So when you were in Taiwan, were you able to speak a little bit of Taiwanese or it was just Mandarin?
It was mostly just Mandarin. That was mostly what everyone talked about. Well, people also talked Taiwanese, but since I was learning Chinese and my schooling was in Chinese, that's what I like Mandarin Chinese, that's what I learned. But I did hear Taiwanese. I had no clue what anyone was saying whenever I heard it, but I did sometimes hear it.
You know, when I went back, it was 20 years after I left. So I went back when I was 24 and I
Oh,
was 5 years old. So I was there for 3 weeks only. I don't know if that happened to you, but when I came, well, in that time, I was living in Argentina.
okay.
So when I went back, I was thinking in Taiwanese. Did that happen to you that you were thinking in Mandarin when you were living in there?
Sometimes. Or even now I find myself completing thoughts in Chinese where it's like, what am I doing? Or sometimes I can't remember a word and it comes up in Mandarin instead.
So that's good. You're learning.
I hope so.
What about the food? I remember when I was visiting, my aunt took me, I may say for breakfast, in the street when people were just cooking like a fresh breakfast. Did you experience that? Did you eat breakfast from the street?
So at that point when I was in Taiwan, since it was COVID, a lot of the street markets that had been there were closed down. Some of them had reopened at that point, but a lot of them were closed still. So I didn't really see any of that of the cooking on the side of the street. But there were a few places that still like the breakfast places we would go to for like danbing or other stuff like that.
What's your favorite food
Favorite foods? Oh,
that you try in Taiwan?
I would always get what is it? The pork cutlet, I guess it is. There is a place that I would go to every day. Once I form a habit, I tend to go back to the same place over and over. So it was a rice with pork cutlets, and then you got to choose like the sides that you would get with it.
What about the dessert?
Dessert.
That's my favorite part.
Oh, I did like the bingsu, like the shaved ice that they had. That was really good. There were some places that had like a lot of additions, like mango, and like it was just really good.
Tapioca? Pupa?
Yeah, I I have a love-hate relationship with boba, so where I can eat it sometimes, but I can't eat it too much. But I used to get tea, like the tea a lot as well.
Sometimes with the shaved ice, you can use the tiny one, the tiny white or clear ones.
Yes. Yeah, my friends, they would eat that. But again, I have a texture thing as well with when I eat foods.
Like a jelly.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I have a weird thing about jellies.
And when you get there, how was your, let me call you like a relationship with the money? Were you able to understand? Because I don't know, anything about money in Taiwan.
Um, so before I had left, I kind of set a budget for myself. So I kind of had an idea of what the money would be like or how much I would spend on a day-to-day basis. But it was still a learning curve because I ended up spending more than I thought that I would because I didn't really understand the conversion rates. But after I'd buy something, each time I would check and see how much did I actually spend. Also, since my scholarship was in Taiwanese dollars, that helped me to focus on how much I was spending.
What about the other things like clothing or how were the prices? Like, did you buy?
Um, there was a Taiwanese clothing store that I kind of fell in love with. I'm actually wearing a shirt from there right now. It's like it's kind of like Old Navy or whatever. Because I love Old Navy, and it's kind of like that as well, where it has relatively cheap clothing that still has good quality. It's called Nets, like NETS.
I have some clothing from there.
Really?
Yes, my cousins took me there.
So I really like Nets. But one of the things I noticed though, if you wanted to buy like foreign brands, it was actually more expensive buying it in Taiwan than it would have been buying it in like the US or something like that. Because I had forgotten my running shoes when I left, and so I had to buy a new pair. And that was one of the things when I was going around to like the Nike store or like the Adidas store, the prices were a lot more than it would have been if I was here in the US.
Were you able to meet people who were not Taiwanese when you were traveling? Like I don't know, like no visitor, like people living in Taiwan, no Taiwanese people.
So my language school had a lot of people who were from different countries. I actually in my class the first semester I had someone from Japan, someone from South Korea, and then another person from Argentina actually. He's a priest, so
Oh,
he went from Argentina to Taiwan to be a priest there. So that it was interesting getting to interact with them because I think all our base languages were English, so we could kind of communicate in that, and then our broken Chinese as we were trying to talk with each other. But it was cool because I don't really have a lot of experience with people from like Japan, or in the second semester there are people from Vietnam that I got to interact with. So it was interesting hearing about their experiences in their home countries, or the different types of traditions we have, because we'd have to explain like one of our subject topics was like, after I don't know, somebody gives birth, like what do you do in your home country, those kind of things, because the US has very different ideas on what you do versus like Vietnam or Taiwan or other places.
so how was your staying there? It was like a kind of hotel, or it was a house where you're living with somebody?
So back to my budgeting before I had left, I found a dormitory on my school's website that linked to like outside dorms that you could go to. So I found one that wasn't too far from my campus. I'd ride the bus to campus, or you could walk as well, but it gets really hot in Taiwan, so I didn't want to have to walk every day. But I lived in a one-room dorm because I wanted to live by myself.
Oh,
No, well, because you still got everyone else there with you, but I wanted to just have my own room. So I had my own room and my own restroom in my room as well, and it wasn't way too expensive. Very compared to some of my other friends who were at different universities, their living situation, they lived in an apartment and they paid a lot more than I did at the dorm that I was living in.
you got the scholarship, so you were studying like college courses, or it was the language?
It was a language scholarship, so they were giving me a monthly stipend to study at a language school. So it was all Mandarin languages classes that I was learning.
So what is your future with the Mandarin right now?
When you say future, like what
Are
I'm
you,
going to
are you planning to go back and keep learning? Are you planning on, I don't know, like teaching Mandarin at some point?
I probably won't teach Mandarin, but if I could go back and do language study, I would. But it's kind of hard doing that when you start working, to go back and take time for that. But if I could, I definitely would.
So let's say somebody wants to apply for the scholarship. What was the process?
So there's a Taiwanese department. Since it's not really a consulate here in Houston. So I was able to go to find the website for the scholarship on their page. And with that, you need, I want to say there's 3 recommendations that you need for it, and then there's a statement that you have to write about why you want to study Chinese, and what you have to give kind of an idea of what schools you're applying to for how long. There are different lengths of time you can use the scholarship for. There's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. I did the 6-month scholarship, and because of quarantine, I had to go earlier. So it ended up being closer to 7 months that I was there. But yeah, that's basically, it's not too hard an application process, and there's no fee for applying either. But if you don't live nearby one of the offices, then you have to mail it in. But since I lived in Houston, I was actually able to go into the office and bring my passport in to get my my visa and everything else after I'd applied.
Were you able to meet people, like to make friends over there with Taiwanese people that are still in touch with you?
So when I was there, so it's another longer story. So when I was going over to Taiwan, since they're very restrictive on who can enter, you had to have special permission to enter at that point in time. There was only a few flights going in. So I was on a United flight with some other people, and I met one person who was also going. She was studying Chinese as well over in Taiwan. And through her, we formed a little group, like a friend group. And in my friend group, my friend was looking for a place to live as well. And so I recommended that she stay at the dorm that I was, because it's cheap, and she also had a smaller budget as well. And through her, because she's like the friendliest person you can ever interact with. She'll go up to anyone and start talking with them. I met some of the other people who were living in my dorm and got to interact with them, which was a blessing, because the person she lived on the same floor that I did, and she was incredibly helpful. Because there are some things I wouldn't understand, or she'd be able to translate, because she had at one point been I want to say an English teacher as well. So she'd had some knowledge on English, and so she could translate things for us, or help us if we had to go to the bank or something, help us figure that out. So I still sometimes interact with her. I'm friends with her on Facebook. So yeah, in that way, yes.
Even I was born in Taiwan, I don't know like almost anything about the Taiwanese culture. But let me ask you, how Taiwanese people have fun?
So from what I learned, because it was also one of the topics that we would talk through, a lot of it's KTV, going to the karaoke. I love to sing, and so having the KTV places was incredibly awesome. They're open 24/7. So at any point, if you want to go to do sing karaoke, you can. And the karaoke rooms have food that you can get and drinks and everything else. So I know that for sure that Taiwanese people love KTV. And then night markets as well. People like to go out to the night markets.
I have like a very old karaoke machine at home, but the first time that I went to a KTV was in Taiwan when my aunt took me. I was like, I don't know any Chinese song, but she told me, just grab the microphone, we can take a selfie, you know. It was cool for me because I never saw that in Argentina.
Mm,
We have
yeah.
some here in the United States, but I've never been in one in Argentina.
So when I was the KTV place we went had a lot more Mandarin songs, but since I like to listen to international music and there are some Chinese songs that I know, I got to sing those, and they're all really slow because trying to read Chinese quickly is impossible for me. But it was just for my birthday, because I was in Taiwan for my birthday. A group of us got together and we all just sang the songs that we knew in Mandarin.
How fun.
Mm.
You know that I think it was this morning or probably yesterday that they were sharing in the news that Taiwan is the number 4 in Asia, like the happiest country.
Really? I can see that. Yeah. Everyone is incredibly nice when I was there. If you had a question or anything like that, you could just stop someone and they'd answer it for you. Everyone was really nice.
And I don't know that you were there during the pandemic or a little bit after that, but were you able to see how the people interact in Taiwan, like in the street or at different stores?
I guess like normal. I don't know. In what way do you mean?
Like, for example, here in Houston, when you go shopping, you just go, you know, like if I have people in front of my line or behind me, I don't talk to anybody, right?
Oh,
that
yeah.
is, but in Argentina, like you don't know anybody, like, but you talk to everyone.
I think it's closer to Houston then. Most people you kind of just do your own thing while you're there.
Inside my square.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
What about people doing exercises in the street? Because in the movies, everybody, you know, does some kind of exercise.
So there was a small park that was close to the dorm that I was living in. And in the evenings, like when it was cooler, you could see people, older people walking around the park and kids and stuff like that there. But in the streets, you couldn't really, because at least from where I was, it's very tight streets, so you don't really have a lot of space to, I guess, to do the dances right there. So at the park, you would find them, people doing the dances.
Before you mentioned that you like the net clothing that is like kind of Old Navy, right? Maybe the clothing in the United States is more similar to Taiwan than Argentina, because when I traveled, well, that was more than 20 years ago, my cousin was like, everybody can say that you are not from here because your clothing is different, because you walk different.
I would say the style was very different. Or at least I don't know if it's just me or my age group. Because I feel like people in the US, we don't really dress up to go out. We just wear whatever to go out. But at least in Taiwan, people would be dressed nicely. I would just be in, I don't know, workout clothes going to class, where other people would always dress nicely.
Well, you know what? In Argentina, I think it's even nicer than in Taiwan, because everybody put on like makeup to just go to the grocery store, you know, like you go to the mall, it's like everybody's a model.
Yeah, no. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was similar to in Taiwan.
And here, you know, I even if I need to try, I just put my sandals, you know, the short and the t-shirt.
Exactly. Which was interesting because even with my classmates, they would wear nicer clothing to class. I'm just trying to wake up and get to class on time.
Well, where are they from?
Some of them were from Vietnam. Some of them were from like Japan, like you were saying. I can't really remember where everyone else was from. There were a lot of people. I think there's some from people from Guatemala as well. As well as the priest I was there. Honestly, in my head, with the priest that I'd become friends with, I refer to him in Chinese as Father Shenfu. So now that's what I think of him as. So if I end up saying that, I'm referring to him.
What about people from United States? Did you have like
There was one other person that I'd met from the US in my program. But I think mine just had a lot of people from other countries. My other friends that the school that they were at, they had a good amount more Americans than I did, but for me, it was mostly people from other foreigners all coming together.
I want to thank you for sharing your experience. If you can give, I know that you are very young. You look very young. If you can share your like a message to people who wants to travel, it doesn't matter the age, and about traveling and learning about another language. Why would you tell them to learn Mandarin?
Why? Okay. I
Why
think
Mandarin and not another language?
Why Mandarin? I think Mandarin's actually a really beautiful language. It is a little difficult to learn, but there's so much knowledge to be learned from it, especially with the cultures that you get to interact with. There's so much more to be said about learning about how another person thinks, especially with their own traditions or how they think through things. I think my own viewpoint on life has broadened because I've learned another language, particularly Mandarin. It's the other side of the world, completely different than the cultures that I've grown up around. If you have the chance, I would say to definitely go visit Taiwan or mainland China if you want to. And if you want to learn the language, there are scholarships out there for you to be able to go and do that.
Thank you so much, Dorothy, for your time. And I'm so happy that I was able to meet you because I was in Taiwan for 3 weeks. And I envy you because you were there for half a year.
Yeah. Maybe at some point we can go back together.
Sure, why not? I want to try every food. I really want to try the Taiwanese food because
my
it's
gosh, yes.
really spicy. So thank you so much, and I see you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.